Hi, I'm Bill Drake, President of Friends of Sierra Rock Art. Thank you for watching this video. Friends of Sierra Rock Art was founded in 1990 to help protect Native American petroglyph sites in California's northern Sierra Nevada. We work very closely with the Tahoe National Forest and other landowners, including Pacific Gas and Electric Company, and we work with Native American tribes, in particular the Washoe tribe, whose ancestors made a lot of the sites that we help protect.
I'm Nolan Smith. I'm the Vice President of Friends of Sierra Rock Art, and I worked for the Tahoe National Forest as an archaeologist for 40 years.
Generally, the locations of sites that are unprotected are kept confidential. That's because they start getting visitation, which causes increased visitation. That causes vandalism and increased vandalism. So we keep them confidential to try to protect them. This particular site we're doing our video about, the Donner Summit site, is widely known. It's a public site, it's right near a highway, gets a lot of visitation. So we wanted to create this video to encourage people to appreciate it as a sacred site to the Washoe people, to know how to behave at a site, to not cause any harm, and to also know how to have a meaningful experience here.
Today we're honored to have Darrel Cruz. Darrel is the past Tribal Preservation Officer of the Washoe Tribe of California and Nevada. Darrel worked for 15 years in that capacity and worked closely with different agencies.
So let's go take a look at the site. We come to the site here, and the first things we see are this little rock wall and this information signage. The rock wall serves a purpose of encouraging people to stop here, to look at the petroglyphs without going onto the site, and to be respectful. The signage was placed by Friends of Sierra Rock Art with the Washoe tribe, the Tahoe National Forest, who owns this land, and the Sierra Nevada Alliance. Our hope with the signage is it will encourage people to learn a little bit about the site, to appreciate it, to realize it's a sacred site to the Washoe people, to see how you behave at a site, and to allow the site to nourish them and touch them by having a little bit of a knowledge about it. When I bring groups here, I like to give them some education. I'll talk about the Washoe people and their ancestors. The ancestors of the Washoe were native people we call the Martis because their artifacts were found in Martis Valley near Truckee, not too far from here. The Washoe ancestors spent time in this side of the Sierra, roughly from 500 AD to 2000 BC. So we've got petroglyphs here that go back 1,500 to 4,000 years. They probably spent summers over here and then went back over the east side for winters. And they certainly came back to these areas on this side over and over for many, many centuries. They were prolific petroglyph makers. Their petroglyphs are found in 5 consecutive counties here in Northern California, in Plumas County, Sierra County, here in Nevada County, neighboring Placer County, and also El Dorado County. So there are probably at least 150 sites that we have learned about over the years, and there are probably more than that. So we're at the first part of the site here, and we have petroglyphs on this rock. The challenge of being on the site is it's very hard not to walk on images, but our shoes can wear them down, so we try not to walk on the images. In this site, it's very hard to see them, but there are a number of petroglyphs here. You can also see marks from heavy equipment that came through here some time ago, putting in a pipeline and went right over these petroglyphs and destroyed part of the site. Now we're going to look at some images over in this direction. So these are some of the first images here that we have at the site. They're very hard to see. To the degree you can see them, they tend to be very abstract. And that's true with a lot of the images of the Washoe ancestors. Most of them are abstract in nature. Sometimes you can see an image you recognize as something like a bear paw or a sun design, but we still don't know what that meant to the person that made it. So that's part of the experience of these, is to try and be comfortable with, try to enjoy the mystery of it, because it is a mystery that we're thinking about here. Rock imagery was made all over the world. It can have different purposes. In some areas it might relate to hunting magic, or maybe boundary markers, or vision questing images, family totems. In the Southwest you find from the Hopi people, their ancestral site, the ancestral Puebloans, would show their clan symbols that they could still recognize today. So there are a number of reasons for making rock imagery, but it all had an underlying spiritual nature to it, and that's part of all these being spiritual sites for the Washoe and other tribes that have rock imagery. We don't believe that this was simply doodling, that it was made purposefully, even though we can't interpret them, and we just have to appreciate the mystery of them. So I'm going to point out some individual images just to give you a sample of what's here, and we'll show you photographs of them that have been enhanced to make it easier to see. And they've been enhanced with a program called D-Stretch. It was developed by a friend of ours, John Harmon. It's a way of working with contrast to make rock images visible or more visible. It's a program you can have on your cell phone or on your computer, and we will credit that at the end of the video if anyone's interested. So the first image we're going to look at is this one right here, which shows up a little bit, but still a little hard to see the detail. Very abstract. The D-Stretch photo will make it much clearer. With these imageries, the Martis people, the Washoe ancestors, all their rock imagery had a similar style, of rock imagery. They're different styles. So these were all similar in certain ways. There's some common images that many of the Washoe ancestral sites, like bear paws, are very common. And then you have, at some sites, individual images that are a little unique to that site and a little unusual. So I think of this particular image in that way. It's different than anything I've seen at any of these sites. It's very interesting, very unique in its nature. So from here we're going to go over to look at an image up in this direction. This next image we're going to look at is a series of concentric circles. It's a nice example of imagery that's very common at some of these sites. You often see circles, spirals, concentric circles, and it's also a fairly universal image that you find represented in other cultures as well in other parts of the world. Then from here we're going to walk up that way to look at some more abstract images. Again, trying not to step on any images if we can possibly help it. So here we have another set of images that are abstract in nature. We have crisscross lines here and then wavy lines coming down. Another example of some of what's at the site. It'll show up well in the photograph that we show you. And now we're going to move up that way to look at another set of images. So here we have another set of abstract images with lines that cross each other, some lines coming down here. Part of what's interesting here, we're on an outcrop that's granite, which is an igneous rock, and we have here what's called an intrusion of a darker igneous rock that's intruded to the surface. So we see that a lot at this outcrop and other granite outcrops. The Washoe ancestors tended to incorporate them into their rock imagery. So we've got this little dark rock here, and you can see where it's pecked around it as part of these lines that create the image. So we can't say why they did that, but that was something that was very commonly done with their rock imagery, and we'll see more of that at the next set of images that we come to. So here's another example of where you have a darker igneous rock that's intruded from the surface, and the Washoe ancestors made these lines off of it to create a design. You've also got what could be an animal track just beside that. And then we come down to look at these images here. And again, you've got another example. You have these, and this will show up better in the photograph. You've got, looks like about 4 lines that sweep down and curve and come into this dark intrusion, or maybe come out of it, or maybe just put together as a connection to it. Next to that, you've got this bear paw image, which is very common at these sites, at Washoe ancestral sites. Bear paws, sun designs, circle spirals, you see those at a lot of the sites, but certainly bear paws, sometimes they're designed differently, but they're very common. You can imagine the bear was a really major part of their world, so certainly you see a lot of bear paws. What I like to talk about with people when we have images like this, particularly something we might focus on, like that bear paw, which draws our attention. What I like to talk about when we focus on images that are particularly interesting to us, perhaps, is the idea of zooming out. So it's like with a camera where you can zoom in or zoom out. So we have this image here, and that's interesting in itself. If you step back a little, part of its context is all these images that are right around it in this same grouping of images. That's part of its context. Images can be different. They may mean different things. We can't know. But that's part of its context. You zoom out a little further and look at all the images at this site. It's a part of all that too. It's part of the whole site. Stepping back a little further, you've got the forests around us. You've got the ravines with seasonal water coming through. Stepping back further, you've got the mountains. You've got Donner Lake. You've got a pathway where native people cross the Sierra. All that is part of the context for this image. So when we remember that, it gives it a little more meaning to us. You know, they might be like many other ancient people that had a sacred landscape that they lived in and walked in. You know, that coming across the Sierra, that coming to this area was part of a sacred landscape. Coming back from that one single image, expanding backwards, it's a part of a much larger and larger and larger totality. And now we're going to go to Darrel Cruz, the retired Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Washoe tribe, who's going to share some of how he, as a Washoe person, looks at these sites, and also the damage to these sites that he, like our group, is very concerned about.
Good morning. My name is Darrel. I'm the former THPO, or Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Washoe tribe. And I've worked with the Friends of Sierra Rock Art, for many years in both the capacity as the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer and as a private citizen. Here lately, I'm a private citizen. I retired from the tribe several years ago, but I maintain contact with the Friends of Sierra Rock Art, Bill. And today I want to thank the Friends of Sierra Rock Art for inviting me here to talk about the effects of vandalism on petroglyphs and the Donner Petroglyph Site. I am a direct descendant of the Washoe people that created these petroglyphs. And so I guess that qualifies me to talk about it, but I think it's important that we hear the native perspective about the effects of petroglyphs. It is what we created. Donner is one of many petroglyph sites and archaeological sites within the Washoe tribe Aboriginal territory. I guess I should tell you a little bit about myself. So my mother is Washoe, and I grew up in Alpine County, California. That's where I grew up. And after that, after I grew up, I did my time in the military, in the Army. I did time 20 years fighting fire. So with those, you know, I worked in extreme environments, and it was rewarding to do what I did because I did something that was good. But my most important achievement is working in the capacity working with the tribe to protect the natural and cultural environments. So while I was working with the tribe, it was not just related just to historic heritage resources, but also the natural environment. The flora, fauna, the fish, the wildlife, the water, everything. That's all important. You know, it's just like the Friends of Rock Art people, you know, they dedicate their time to doing this work, protection and preservation. That's a big job, and I appreciate that work. My contributions working for the Washoe tribe transcended beyond tribal matters, but had positive effects in the region. Today I will try to convey to you what these special places mean to us as a tribal member and a citizen of this country. Donner Petroglyph Site is just one of many archaeological sites within the Washoe homeland. It is important to us. Petroglyphs, sometimes called rock art by modern people. However, petroglyphs have a purpose and meaning beyond something to look at, but rather had a specific purpose by a select few indigenous people. So when I say a select people, there was only a few people that were actually creating these sites based on what I see. Not the whole tribe was out there doing this, but it was only a select people that were creating these images in the rock. I could say Washoe, but I think indigenous people across the country face the same threats to their special places. So I'm here as a Washoe member, but I know that in other places across the country, they face similar problems with their heritage places being desecrated. These special places have always been our story and always will be our story of who we are. For thousands of years, they had remained a place of great veneration that had special meaning for the tribe. For thousands of years, the petroglyphs have withstood time, but they have no defense against human vandalism. These places have experienced vandalism for years, but recently this place and other places have come under attack by graffiti. During the pandemic, I have seen an increase in widespread vandalism and damage throughout the Sierras. So this is one site, but there are many other sites that have come under attack by graffiti. And the bad thing about graffiti is once somebody puts it down, then somebody else has to come along and put theirs on there, and next thing you know, it's everywhere. And it's just like that everywhere. And just right across the valley there in Martis Valley, we had to clean up a site that had come under attack from graffiti as well. Like all archaeological sites that have already been lost, we have lost not only important places to Washoe, but lost all evidence into a glimpse of the past. I can think of many things to say about those people committing desecration, but I'm here today to bring people together for a common cause and appeal to their human dignity to do the right thing. And that's all we can do, you know, to get the word out for people to do the right thing. You know, most people are good, and most people are respectful, most people want to do the right thing. And I think this might help, you know, if they understand how important it is, not just to the Washoe, but to everyone across the nation or the country. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the things I have done to reduce the disturbances. So in my years as a historic preservation officer, I work with organizations, land managers to create and post heritage protection information at public platforms and places. get the word out. So I have spent hours removing graffiti using alcohol to remove paint. So we'd do a cotton ball, put some alcohol on it, and we get out there and swirl on it for hours and hours to remove the graffiti off the archaeological or the petroglyph sites. That's time-consuming and tedious work, but it's something that we did. And when I say we, working with volunteers, you know, like Friends of Rock Art, you know, people like that. To reduce potential adverse effects to heritage sites, I have contacted websites or blogs that advertise petroglyphs. Some of the people voluntarily removed information due to the potential harm that their websites may be causing, for which we are very thankful. So just making contact with some of these people, you know, they understand and they take on, they remove that information. That's just really good. And again, we're thankful that they did that. As the former Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Washoe Tribe in Nevada and California, it was my duty to protect heritage resources. As the tribe repatriated our former lands back to the tribe, sometimes those lands came with features that are not tribal history, but became part of our history now that we own it. As such, under the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, they have received equal consideration and protection. So even though they're not our culture, they still receive protection from the tribe. Some things we can all do to preserve. People are naturally inquisitive and want to see these special places and know what they mean. Perhaps one day a person will unlock the mysteries, but for me, I'm perfectly fine with the wonderment of mysteries. Leave it as a mystery and consider yourself fortunate to see a glimpse into the ancient world. And I like that. You know, that's what we're all wanting to do. It's just ancient stuff, and we're fortunate to be able to see that. These special places have always been our story, and always will be our story of who we are and our cultural affiliation. But these places have become the story of America, an integral part of the American experience and history. What was once the exclusive realm of the indigenous peoples, the Washoe and indigenous peoples, have been absorbed into what gives America a past and history. History began thousands of years before 1492, and it is a continuance of that time. As a people, we all have a duty to protect and preserve these special places. It all depends on the individual, how well they value the story of America. If we lose these places before ever learning the true meaning of these places, it will be a loss for the nation's identity of who we are as a people. For all those people that have dedicated their time and lives to do their part protecting these places is a testament of their goodwill and character. So thank you, Friends of Sierra Rock Art, and all the other people that are out there doing their part to protect these places. Finally, I read somewhere that a responsible nation and people care for their past and history.
In Darrel's presentation, as well as giving his perspective on these sites and their importance to the Washoe people, he talked about the damage to them. He talked about the graffiti at these sites. So we're going to show you several examples of graffiti right at the site, which we're very concerned about. We intend to have a graffiti removal party here before long to try to make some of it disappear. We do this periodically. It just happens to come back. So now we're going to show you some individual examples of graffiti. This first example is in the entranceway on the rocks where you would walk in from the road if you park near the road. You can see 3 rocks there which all have graffiti on them. Now we're going to do a close-up of one of those rocks. You can look at that rock and see you have graffiti put over other people's graffiti. You also see the graffiti RESK, and that is one of the tags for one of the graffiti people, and you'll see that in several examples throughout this site. We'll see it once again in our video here. This next image is where some of the rock on the crust of the outer surface has peeled away, and someone has created a design using green and yellow right at that particular place. This is right next to petroglyph images. This fourth example, I Heart Mom, was placed here since last fall. We monitor this site several times a year, and we monitor it in the early fall, and that example, as well as a number of others, were not here at that time. And there's a trail that takes you off from the site towards the south. As you walk on that trail, you see this rock here, which says "Hi" in yellow. That's placed right there, which is within the site boundary, the area that's considered part of the archaeology site. And then a little further south, we come back to the RESK tag again on this particular rock. And then we offer you a picture of trash that we find at the site and clean up. In this case, we've got a beer bottle that's broken up. In Darrel's presentation, he talked about the problem with graffiti at these sites and the destruction to these sites. So we just showed you some examples. We also have a concern about them, as does the Tahoe National Forest. And Carrie Smith, who was the Cultural Resource Manager for the Tahoe National Forest, asked FSRA, our group, Friends of Sierra Rock Art, to develop guidelines for young people about how to behave at a site so not to cause any harm. Our thinking was the best people to do that would be young people. So we approached a high school in Nevada City, California, called the Sierra Academy for Expeditionary Learning. We got a group of students to work with, high school students. We took them to a couple of sites, showed them how we record sites and monitor sites. We did some classroom presentations. So we gave the students a set of guidelines for developing signage to encourage positive behavior that were created by Matt Podolinsky, who did that for his master's thesis. The students then developed a series of guidelines that we now have at information at a number of different sites. It's one page of a two-page information sheet, and I'm going to read to you the guidelines the students came up with as we show them to you in our video. Please walk around petroglyphs. Walking on them wears them down. Please walk without walking sticks with metal tips near images. Metal tips can cause damage. Please appreciate glyphs through observation without touching. Preserve the original images without adding your own. Please leave the natural environment around the images as it is. Keep locations of confidential sites confidential. Too many visitors will increase damage to a site. Call the Forest Service if you see someone doing damage. Often sites are damaged because people don't realize their actions can cause harm. We need your help preserving them. Imagine these sites in perfect condition. Allow these places to touch you and give you a sense of awe. Before we leave this site, I want to talk about some of the other features that are around us. Part of what I find amazing about this location is what I call the juxtaposition of so many different time periods, so many different worlds, so many different realities, all here at this one spot. Obviously, you've got the petroglyphs, which we talked about. We've also got the Donner Pass, which is just to the west of the site, where the native people walked back and forth from one side of the Sierra to the other, and later where wagon trains were used to come into California. We're right near Donner Summit, which is over 7,000 feet. So people came back and forth here at the summit for many, many centuries, for thousands of years. Some of that was for trade, to trade for salt, obsidian, for resources, for fish, and so forth. So that was a major part of this route, and a major part of the petroglyphs being here is because it was a trans-Sierra route for ancient people. We've got Donner Lake, which was certainly a major resource for native people. It was created during the Ice Age, so it's been here for many thousands of years. We have the Rainbow Bridge, or the Donner Memorial Bridge, which was dedicated in 1926. Over here to the south, we have where the Transcontinental Railroad was built in the 1800s. Below that, the rock wall, which is called the China Wall, which was built by the Chinese. To the left of that, we have a rock surface that's used for rock climbing. So we have rock climbers climbing on that and other surfaces in the area. To the east here, right next to the site, we have the old Highway 40, which is now Donner Pass Road. Old Highway 40 was a transcontinental interstate highway that went from San Francisco to Atlantic City, New Jersey. It was before Interstate 80 became the main interstate thruway when it was built in the late 50s and 1960s. And then if you go to the south of this, to the west of this site, go past the outcrop the site is on, there's a ravine, you go up past that ravine to another outcrop, and then work your way over to the cliff face to the south. You have where the Lincoln Highway went through this area. The Lincoln Highway was dedicated in 1913. It was the first cross-country roadway in the United States. And then below the Lincoln Highway, which I find really fascinating, is a hand-painted sign advertising a hotel in Truckee that people driving their Model A's and Model T's up the highway, if they could do this without driving off the road, they could look down and read this advertisement. When I started coming up here 35 years ago, I could just barely read that sign. Over the years, it's gotten a little harder to read. The sign itself was painted somewhere between 1913 and 1926. It's advertising the New Whitney Hotel in Truckee. And if you stop and look at the sign, I'll tell you what it reads. It starts off, steam heated New Whitney, Truckee, we invite inspection. I found that sign particularly fascinating and unique, and one of multiple amazing features at this site, to which the petroglyphs, in our view, are the heart of the site. Thank you for watching this video. We hope it helps you visit the site and have a meaningful experience. Also, that you've learned how to behave at a site in a way that causes no harm, and to respect the site as a site that's sacred to the Washoe people.